Hello, guys. It is Wednesday, September 25th. I have an awesome guest on the podcast today, Rutter. She's a podcast host just like me. She's the host of the Life in the Fast Chain by R3. So this episode is also pretty cool because we go into a lot of detail on R3 Corda, and she kind of gives us the inside scoop on R3 and their history and what they're doing now, the projects they're working on, and we also talk about the podcast also, Life in the Fast Chain, which is also awesome and fast growing, and I highly recommend you guys check it out. As always, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and share this episode with someone that you think would like to learn more about Bitcoin, crypto, blockchain, anything in this industry. All right, guys, enjoy.
This is the BlockHash Podcast.
Hello, Catherine. How you doing?
Hey, Brandon. I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome. Hope your Thursday is going well, that your week's going well.
It is. It's been a little crazy this week, but I feel like I say that all the time, so I need to stop saying it because my mom is going to be like, can you please stop? You're working too hard. It's a good problem to have, though, I guess.
Yeah, sure. That's a good problem to have. And I did promise you that you could come on the podcast. I believe that we had that on the record multiple times. I think you made sure that was on the record multiple times.
I think I made you say it at least 4 times, but I can go back and fact check.
Exactly. I don't think fact check is necessary, but yet here we are. So, Catherine, since most people will probably recognize you from Life in the Fast Chain, but they might not know much about your past. So instead of having to go stalk you too much, why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory and kind of how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, great. I think it's funny, and I said this before we started recording, but it's funny me having to talk about myself instead of asking the question. So I'm going to try my best. But so I came to, my story is actually a little unique. I went to school at the College of the Holy Cross in Massachusetts. It's a small liberal arts school. And I was an English major, creative writing concentration, loved that. Of course, so many people would be like, oh, do you want to be a teacher? Like as if I couldn't be an English major and want to do other things. But so I did not, but liberal arts education was amazing. However, I didn't have like a marketing major, which was something I was super interested in. But when I was there, I was on the lacrosse team. And I can't say I played much, but it was D1 lacrosse. So
Did you get to
that's
play?
a step. Sorry?
Did you get to play?
I mean, I did at times, but I was on the bench more than I was on the field, if I'm being honest. I used to always say my coach loved me as a person, but not so much as a player.
Oh, ooh. But
okay.
They're D1 for lacrosse? That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting because people don't really know that because it's such a small school. So it's either you really know it and you know a lot about it because you have family or whatever, or you have absolutely no idea what it is. So,
right.
But they are D1. They're in the Patriot League. So that was fun.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. I also went to a small liberal arts college too in California. So I kind of know that feeling where you're playing, like I was playing Division III football. But like we had sports teams that were like Division I. And then like our tennis teams were really good. Our water polo teams and swim teams are very, very good. Our rugby team is like 3-4 years in a row was like one of the best teams in the country.
Wow.
Kicking USC's ass and
Love
competing against all these big schools. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird how some of these small colleges work. You get like, you play in some of the smaller leagues, and then depending on like what sport it is or what event or what club, you're playing in like the upper leagues with the big boys and girls, and it's interesting.
No, totally. And I also think just like the small school, liberal arts school, there's such like a community around that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I loved it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, it was fun. Well, I was lucky enough that we were in a consortium of 5 different colleges. So it felt like...
I didn't know that about Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just don't know much about.
We are the Claremont College Consortium. So we are a combination of 5 undergrad colleges, Pitzer College, Pomona College, Harvey Mudd, Scripps, and Claremont McKenna. And
Maybe I did know that. That sounds familiar, but I don't think I
yeah,
did.
some of those schools are a lot older than Pitzer and definitely are you're probably familiar. But they're all kind of small schools, but all put together. They all kind of share the same resources. It feels like a really big university still. So it's a really interesting experience.
Oh, that's so cool. That's such an interesting mix.
Yeah, and it's in
You
California,
have
so you
like
can't
both
beat that.
experiences. So for school, I obviously I wanted to get into kind of marketing, and I was on the lacrosse team. But I also did I had a 3-year internship for our athletic relations, so marketing stuff for all of Holy Cross athletics. It's kind of embarrassing now that I look back on it because I was doing like sideliney kind of reporting, and now I have Life in the Fast Chain, and that's hopefully taking over Google. But for a while, it was just me like standing on a sideline or like in front of a green screen, like, "What's up, Crusaders? I'm Catherine Rutter." So it's pretty funny. For a while at like parties, I would have my
Oh
friends
boy.
come up to me like, "What's up, Crusaders?" I'm like, damn it.
Did you report on your parties
It was
too?
Oh yeah, it would. I mean, after a point, I would definitely pull out the beer microphone. It was very fun. But so I had that internship for 3 years, and that took up a lot of my time on top of lacrosse and then schoolwork. And then by my senior year, I wanted to have another internship to get more experience. So at school, I went and I interned for an ABC News affiliate in Providence. So I drove to Providence, and that was a great experience because I wanted to get more kind of marketing. And I kind of thought that I would go into TV. But in between my junior and senior year, there was this really, really small company that was trying to figure out kind of like what they were. And that would be R3, at the time called R3 CEV. So Cryptos, Exchanges, Ventures. And I could get in trouble for saying this, but I think we didn't really know exactly what we wanted to be at the time. Everyone was just trying to learn. And I think that's probably consistent with a lot of people in the space. So what year was this? So this was 2015. And so I interned in the summer, and the intern is a funny word to use for my experience, considering I basically was just doing what everyone had said. So there were, I think, 5 like official employees of R3 at the time, and then myself and Sarah Lynch, who is actually working here as well today. She's on the partner team. But so Sarah Lynch and I basically were just doing anything we could to help these very senior guys kind of builds this company. So we had we would be doing things like one moment we're setting up the phone lines, the next moment we're running out to Home Depot to get a curtain to cover this little room that we were in from the bathroom, because the bathroom was right there. And so my solution was to hang a shower curtain so we couldn't see it. And like small things like that. At one point, pretty early on, we were painting the walls in this conference room. And I say conference room because we were in a windowless, airless conference room in Enzo, a company here in New York, who our CEO, David Rutter, is on the board, or was on the board of, or something. He was involved somehow. And so they were like, okay, we'll do you a solid. You're a scrappy company of five senior people and 2 interns who have no idea what they're doing. We'll let you stay in our space for a little because we don't need this conference room. So anyways, that was an amazing experience. Just we were working so closely as interns to these super senior people, and Todd McDonald is actually now, he is technically my boss again, so that's kind of fun. And he's one of the co-founders of the company. But it was just such a great experience what we learned from them while we're like painting the walls and hanging shower curtains and running, like setting up our Salesforce, our website, our social media, everything. So that was an amazing experience. Then I went back to senior year and I was like, that was cool, but I want to do marketing. And at the time I wanted to kind of get into television. So that's why I took up this internship at ABC News, an affiliate, ABC WLNE. So that was great. And then I'm looking for a job after school. And at the time, R3 was about, within the time I was at school, we grew to about, I think, 50 employees. So we had people, and then we had a office in London where Richard Gendel Brown, our CTO, he was brought on. We had Mike Hearn, who was very heavily involved in Bitcoin years and years ago, it's very funny talking to him and being able to learn so much from him, because he's like a little famous in this space. So it's kind of cool having him around, but I digress. So I came back kind of hesitant, not that I didn't believe in what everyone was doing. Everyone was working so hard at, but I didn't fully understand what the goal was. So at this point, R3 had dropped the CEV. We were focusing all on blockchain. They're like, okay, instead of just advising people on blockchain, which was kind of what they were first starting to explore, they pivoted, and Richard Gendel Brown, our CTO, came in and said, we need to build a blockchain for the ground up. And it started with banks. And I want to highlight the fact that it started with banks, but it has kind of completely gone past just banks. And we can talk a little bit about Corda and the ecosystem at R3 a little bit later. But so anyways, the company, I'm totally babbling, but the company was I'm like, should I take a breath? The company that was growing, I'm getting to why I'm here. I promise I'll answer your question. It was growing and it was so cool, but I wanted to be like in TV and marketing. And so I was looking at jobs anywhere, but here in media and in marketing. And I did get a job in, I'm not even going to say the town, because what if someone's from the town, they're like, hey, that's a great place. But I did get a job, and a lot of my friends were coming to New York or going to Boston and going to these big cities. And I would have been in a very small place that I didn't know anyone, which would be okay. However, it is so political in that space, I would say. And I work really hard every day here at R3, but I get massive rewards for that. And I just didn't feel that my hard work would be appreciated. And for many reasons, I didn't take it. But I still needed a job. And at one point, I'm pretty sure my parents were like, okay, so you need to get a job, or like you can't be in our house anymore if you don't have an income. And I was like, fair. So I knew that there were some holes at R3 that I could fix and kind of fill. And I still was thinking that I would come here, have an income, and then I would go on my merry way to whatever place I wanted to work at next. And then, so I pitched it to, at the time, hiring was so funny because we were a total startup, and I pitched it to a few people on why they needed me. And then I was starting on Monday. So now it is not like that. We get so many applications for jobs, and it's so crazy how much our HR is and recruiting has changed. But at the time I was like, all right, knock, knock, this is what you need. And I kind of pitched the whole social presence, me being a millennial, knowing the best of this and that for websites and social media and all that stuff. So I still was not fully convinced that R3 was going to be the place for me. And I was like, what is up with everyone? I would come into work and I'd be like, why is everyone like freaking out? Like, people would be like, we're changing the world. like, okay, these people are like drinking the Kool-Aid, and I was just so not bought in. But I didn't fully understand what we were doing, and that was the problem. And so I say that because now I am literally like, bury me at this company. I am never leaving. I can't believe I even thought about leaving. And so this whole thing like come totally full circle to the point where I'm like, I can't believe I almost resisted something that's been such a positive thing in my life. So that's how I got to R3, and my role has changed a little bit, but I've stayed in marketing. I've in my time here, so now it's 3 years now. I have consistently maintained R3.com, now have taken on Corda.net as well, which are our two main marketing websites. I have a little bit of help from the team on that now because they're such big websites. And I control all of our social media. So our LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm the host of our podcast, Life in the Fast Chain. That was a very long-winded answer, but you
Yeah,
a lot of color
totally.
there.
Well, looks like
that
now you're
volunteer.
drinking the Kool-Aid too.
Oh my God. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid 100%. I'm like, it's like a switch was flipped, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to work here forever.
It's cool to learn about humble beginnings with like a startup, especially in the blockchain space, and then see where they are now from where they came from. So, I mean, that it's a great little like inside look into R3's past a little bit.
Yeah, it's different too than like a story that I think sometimes it seems like we have had people being like, oh, R3 backed by the big bad banks and this and that. And it's actually so inspiring watching, because I really was there from the start in some way, watching the way the company's grown and the dedication and the love for the R3 community. It's been like so inspiring and amazing to watch. But yeah, it's cool. It's cool being a part of it from the beginning.
Yeah, and that definitely creates much more of an attachment to the company and a love for it. And
totally
with the community that you guys have there too, I bet you guys are very, very close and do a lot together anyways.
Yeah, we do. And I think that's one of the cool things about the culture. It's very funny. So we'll have people walk into the office, like our sales people or this or that, and they're wearing full suits. And then the devs come in and they're wearing sweatshirts. And then like the marketing team comes in, I'm wearing like a flowery dress. Like there's so many different characters here. And it's just, yeah, it's really cool. But because everyone gets along, I mean, I think, unless there's company drama I don't know about, but it seems that like there are so many different people, especially in our London office is so diverse. Just, I mean, because you're in London, you can get people from all over, not just here in New York. We definitely have diverse people, but obviously mostly Americans. What's
the benefit of having an office in London?
So our CTO is there, Richard Gendel-Brown, and he when he was first building out the team to build Corda from the ground up, he essentially was like, this is such a big undertaking. Like, I need the team here. So the London office actually has pretty much all of our devs. Recently, we had a press release go out and news about the fact that we're going to open an office in Dublin for devs. So that'll be like kind of another developer hub. But it kind of started off because Richard Gendel-Brown was in London and he's obviously such a big asset. We were like, well, he's building Corda, like he gets what he wants.
Yeah, it makes sense. You'd want something a little bit closer.
Yeah, and now it's obviously grown past just developers over there. We have our office over there. Oh, I'm probably going to get in trouble if I get the numbers wrong, but I'm going to guess anyways. It's got to be like at least like 120 of our employees are over there, and we have over like 220 worldwide. So we also have an office in Sao Paulo, so we're in Brazil. We have a few people in Canada. We have a few people in India. We have another office. We have an office in Singapore, a bigger office in Singapore. Our main offices are London, Singapore, and New York, though. So it is pretty crazy how many people are in the London office, and they're expanding the dev team and
Very
R3
cool.
in general very quickly.
Which ones have you been to?
Offices. So I've only been to New York and London, but I have been frequently between the two. I would like to. I actually wanted to go down to the Sao Paulo office before I kind of realized that it's a little dangerous down there, I think. But we have a lot of really good clients down there. But I think like my blonde, talkative, I don't know, personality, I would be talking to like I don't know. I would put myself in an unsafe situation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Sao Paulo is kind of cool. I mean, they as a country, Brazil is just kind of going through some issues still.
Totally.
It's all just, you just got to be smart. I personally love Latin America in general.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of your experience. You talked a little bit about this on Life in the Fast Chain. I haven't been anywhere down there at all.
It's pretty cool. Brazil, obviously, they speak Portuguese there, so they hate being compared that speak Spanish. No, but they're still great people, and they have amazing food and amazing attractions and places you can go and visit. I went to Florianopolis, Brazil, which is a bit farther south. It's very, very cool. Went during the wrong time of the year when it was cold. You got to go during the summer. Forgot that the seasons are pretty much flipped down there. Same thing with Buenos Aires in Argentina. Love Argentina. Beautiful country. Again, they're going through a lot of issues as well. So you just got to have your head up the whole time, kind of looking around.
Yeah.
You got to be smart.
Totally.
But some like great places to go for sure. Definitely like Chile, which I'm trying to go because I haven't been yet, into Santiago. And then I've been to Colombia a couple times. Love Colombia.
Wow.
It's such a great place. Super safe, gorgeous. People are nice. Panama's awesome. They're not really Latin America, but Panama's still pretty cool. The party doesn't ever stop in Panama. Keep going.
I need to add these to my list because I've traveled because of being in London for work, and I have some family over there. Like I've been to London a lot. I've been to a lot of places in Europe, but I really have to check these off my list because I would love to go to all the places you're saying. Even Argentina, I would really like to go to. That's on my list.
Yeah, I'd love to give you recommendations if you ever make it down that way. It's just such a long flight.
I know, because I don't think of it being so long, but it is long. It takes so long to get down there from New York. How long does it take from where you are?
So I had to fly into Panama because Panama's kind of like the international gateway between North and South America.
Gotcha.
So I'd fly from Vegas. It's about 6.5 hours to fly to Panama City. And then from there, I could fly all the way down to Buenos Aires, which is like 7.5 hours.
Oh, goodness.
So my layover was like an hour. So I got like a solid 14 hours almost straight in the air. So it's a tough one. You got to get used to it.
Yeah.
The first time you do it, you're going to hate it. You're really going to hate it. But after you do it a couple of times, you get used to it.
Yeah, I'm not a good plane sleeper. I think I'm so jealous of people who can like get comfortable on planes and sleep. We went for one of our conferences last year? Yeah, it was a year ago in March, so a year and a half, whatever, in Tokyo. And Japan was such a cool experience for me, but I couldn't sleep on the flights and I had to work when I was there. So I was so tired, but it was beautiful and it was an amazing experience. I'm absolutely not complaining, but I'm not a good plane sleeper.
Well,
that was a cool experience though. Have you been to Asia?
I have not been to Asia, but I'd love to go to Asia.
Oh, see, we're flip-flopping. So now I can tell you where I've been. I mean, it's not like I've been many places in Asia. I've literally only been to China and Japan.
China? Where in China have you been?
I was in Beijing. I actually went for, do you know what Operation Smile is?
It sounds very happy, but I'm not really sure what that is.
No, it's well, yes, it's for smiles, but basically it's just I went on like a mission trip to a very rural city it's like a 2-hour flight from Beijing. And that was a crazy experience in itself. But it's basically for people who can't afford cleft lip and cleft palate surgery. This isn't even an ad for them. I need to get more involved with them now that I'm like a full-grown adult. I was doing this when I was in high school, and so we spent a bit of time in China, in Beijing, and I don't know. I think it was there for charity, so there was like not so much of like the fun stuff I could do. So if I went back, I would probably want to I would have all my spots that I would have to hit. But I did like Japan a lot. Just the culture. There were some like funky cultural things there, but I really liked the bowing. When I came home from Tokyo, I would be talking to people and I would say, "Oh, thank you," and I would bow because I was used to doing. I was so scared that I was going to mess it up in Tokyo and come off as a rude American, so I probably overbowed. But when I came home, I couldn't stop.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar experience, not with the bowing part, but went to when I was on my Argentina trip and I came back. So I was gone for a couple weeks. I come back and I landed in Vegas, and I was going through customs, and the guy was asking if you could like check my bag, and I was I was saying something in Spanish that I can't even remember now because I was just you like pick it up when you're. It's like one of those things that as an American, when you go down there, you like all of a sudden start picking up a little bit of it, whether you've like studied it or not. And then even if you have studied it, then it all comes back to you. And then as soon as you get back to America, you're still thinking in Spanish a little bit.
Oh, no, totally. I literally had that experience recently. I was at a dinner, and so I went to Paris recently, and I love Paris. I love France. But I went to dinner, and I was asking for the check, and I was like, "L'édition, s'il vous plaît?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in like a bistro. They're probably like, this freak has been talking in English." It's like I don't even know much. I studied Spanish and I know Spanish, but I don't know much of in French. So it came out of my mouth, and I was like, I sound like such a tool.
I'd really like to go to actually Singapore.
Oh, me too. Me too. We have a fairly big office there. I would love to go there.
I feel like everyone nowadays has a big office in Singapore. Like I really need to see like what's up. So, I mean, everyone's telling me I need to go there, and it seems like such a hub for business and
totally
connecting with people, and just culture wise, it seems very fun and interesting. So yeah, it's another place that I just got to go to at some point.
Got to travel. Millennials love to travel. We're proving that right now.
Yep, we are. Let's pivot all the way back to R3 here. How did the podcast get started? How did Life in the Fast Chain come into fruition? How did it happen?
Yeah, so I, as I mentioned in my literal soliloquy before, I did video stuff for our athletics relations team, and I wasn't just on camera. I also learned how to edit all of that stuff. So we would record it, and then I would go back into the office, and then I would edit all the videos on Premiere Pro, which is Adobe software. So then when I went to my internship at ABC, the ABC News affiliate, I kind of brought that into. So I was editing clips for their segments and stuff that was really cool, because it's just like right away you get the gratification of seeing something that you edited and on the screen, and like hundreds and thousands of people are watching it. So that was very cool, and so I learned that pretty quickly. And then when I was at R3, there was always like, oh, like let's do a podcast. We have to do a podcast, and everyone was saying it. But because of my experience with just editing and pre-prod, post-prod stuff, production stuff, I knew it was going to take a lot of effort. And I didn't think at the time that all those who wanted to create a podcast really understood that. So but this was fairly early, and I was pretty, it's hard to believe now, but I was pretty like timid at the time about this stuff. So I I wasn't really saying anything, and I was just waiting for people to kind of realize that it was going to be a big lift. And then someone brought it up in a meeting again. And at the time, we didn't even have a marketing function. It was just myself and my coworker, Chase Gordon, who does a lot of our design stuff too here. And now he does PR. But we were kind of just maintaining everything. We didn't have any strategy behind what we were doing other than the fact that we were maintaining the brand. And so I was maintaining the websites and the social media and doing a bunch of other stuff with our like marketing automation tools and whatnot. And then he was doing a lot of PR, brand stuff. And I was in a meeting with him and then our boss at the time, Charlie Cooper, who still is here. He works for external affairs and he still does PR stuff. But at the time, someone brought it up and we were in a meeting. And Charlie, I was like, I have editing skills. Like if someone wants to be the host or if someone wants to do a podcast, like I will totally support. And he kind of turned to me and he was like, well, why would you do all the work? And like, why wouldn't you just be the host? Like you like to talk. I guess like we'll try it out. So that's kind of how it started because I was just going to support the cause. And then it kind of took on a life of its own, which has been amazing. But I was so nervous at first when I first started recording these episodes because my first guest was Mike Hearn, who was involved in Bitcoin so early on. My second guest was Colin Platt from Blockchain Insider from 11FS, and he specializes in derivatives. I was like, I am so over my head right now, and I was so stressed about it at first. But I kind of just realized I didn't want to sound like dumb because I know what I'm talking about. I know the benefits of blockchain. I know the benefits of Corda. That's my whole job, is kind of showing the benefits of what we are doing as a company. And that's kind of all that matters. I know the space. I just was so intimidated by having super, super smart people on the podcast, which it's still intimidating. But that was like my main hurdle at first when I first started it, to the point where I was almost like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this, and having a mini panic attack. But here we are. So I did not give up, but that's how it kind of started and is continuing on.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar like experience like starting my podcast. It's one of those things where it's not quite like a phone call because it's so much of like an interview. Like to like really get into like the flow of things, I had to bring on like my friends as guests. Some of my friends that were knowledgeable about blockchain as much as I were. And I was just like, well, screw it. Let's just talk.
Yeah.
Like whatever direction it goes, let's just kind of talk about whatever. And that kind of helped me get an idea of how to either interview someone or just have a conversation on a podcast and get a feel for like what the flow should be, like what the format should be. Totally. So I think that's like the trickiest thing if you've never done it before, because you're not like interviewing something like a reporter.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like, Catherine, what did you eat this morning? Was it spicy? Like no one cares.
Yeah. No, totally. I think it's so interesting that we had like a similar experience, because it's not the same. Like you kind of, especially with podcasts, you let the conversation go where it goes. No, it's pretty cool.
Exactly. And I think for the most part, I try and do that. I just let them talk as much as possible. Because I mean, that's kind of why they're tuning in. They're tuning into that episode to hear from that person. So
yeah,
letting Catherine run on and talk about whatever is a good thing. So
no, totally. I think also just speaking on like the trials and tribulations of podcasting, but I really, when in this space, the people that we're so fortunate to work amongst or know of, they're so smart and they really know what they're talking about. So me being nervous about me sounding silly, well, that's stupid. Like we want the smart person to talk, and your job is just to let them talk and share their knowledge. So I think I put way too much pressure on myself at first, but it's just different and fun. And that's the point of podcasts. You kind of want to be like a fly on the wall.
Absolutely. You also learn a lot too. Like
Oh my
I
gosh, yes.
my like I'm pretty knowledgeable on like blockchain, whatever, but I mean I've had some like really cool guests on a number of times, and I just feel myself like leaning back, drinking my tea, like just listening and learning. I'm like, geez, I'm back in college again. This is like a lecture. This is great.
I know. I know it. It's so crazy how I think I know so much about the space and this and that. But when you have people on, just even their experiences from learning about the technology and everything, and I don't know, I just learned so much. It's like going to school all over again. That's why I'm always like, hey guys, to my friends who do not care about blockchain. I'm like, guys, so just a heads up, you don't have to listen, but I had a really good guest on. And they're like, okay, got it, thanks. Like no one listens. But you're going to learn something.
I think they do eventually. I think they see it enough, and then they're like, okay, let's listen to Catherine's thing. Let's come on, guys.
I know. I mean, I hope. Fingers crossed.
What are some cool things that you've learned from like some of your guests? Because you guys have had some pretty cool ones come on as well. I'm sure you've learned a ton, but like, is there anything like interesting that you learned that you didn't like know previously?
I have learned so much. This is such a good question because, I mean, I could probably talk for hours about all the stuff that
I'm
I've
sure you
learned,
could.
but you're like, please don't. But I guess just one of the main, I guess it's like a theme. So this is kind of cheating and not fully answering, but a theme that I've kind of appreciated more now that we have the podcast is just the convergence of all these technologies and learning about what blockchain can enable for AI or IoT and
Mhm.
vice versa. So a few episodes that were pretty interesting for me would be more recently we had Ripe on the podcast, and they basically are using blockchain and AI devices to track. They have many different use cases, but to track tomatoes for sweet green. And so like basically from like when they're planted and then in transit, and then when they finally get to sweet green, they're also working with the Dairy Farmers of America. But so you basically can extend the life cycle of the tomato so they don't go bad as quickly. And then kind of further from that, one thing I just never would have thought of some things. And I think that's the bigger thing. I know that blockchain can enable and I don't know, it can enable other technologies and can enable all these other things to happen, but it's the things you don't think about. So the next step for that was Raja Ramachandran was the one who was on the podcast, and he was talking about, let's not just talk about tomatoes, but let's talk about getting your fridge, like an artificial intelligence fridge on a blockchain. And so
Mhm.
it can kind of alert you to when things are going bad, and you can kind of place things in different areas of the fridge based on what it is, and it can extend your food so then you save money. Like that was just a cool example because I wouldn't have ever thought of like tomatoes going to like an actual fridge. And then kind of along that theme, Mike Hearn is so amazing, and I've learned so much. And he tells really good anecdotes about kind of being involved in Bitcoin very early on. And I think this is just a side note. I think it's very funny because he used to email Satoshi, and so he has all these emails from Satoshi from like years and years ago. That's just a side comment, but he has
Mhm.
really cool stories about. I guess he talked about one time, this is another thing I learned about, and it's more of ideas of what's to come in the future. It's not anything super concrete yet, but he just talked about locks and your locks being kind of logged on a blockchain and what you could do with that. So like, let's say your house locks, whatever. So if that's on I'm going to totally butcher this. I really hope he doesn't like listen to me mess it all up. But if it's on your locks are on a blockchain and you have a house and you have a mortgage and you haven't paid your mortgage, it can it knows that you haven't paid your mortgage yet, and then the house can actually physically lock you out of the house for example. And just things like that where, like that makes sense. I could maybe come to that at some point, but it's a use case I don't think about.
Yeah, there's all kinds of implementations once you really start thinking about it. I mean, especially with AI and blockchain and VR and all the things you
Oh,
can do
yeah.
with them. Like, it'd be really cool to have a fridge that is never empty because I always clear out my fridge. It'd be nice to always come back and have the same amount of cheese in the fridge, the same amount of beer in the
Oh,
fridge, like
yeah.
nothing changed. Like that would be
No,
great.
totally.
And then just like
Totally.
have Amazon deliver it to my door. That'd be fantastic. Like
Have a
I'm
little
down for that.
robot put it in your fridge.
I'm down for that as long as the fridge isn't like spying on me, like watching me eat the cheese. Like that,
Late night, you come home and you're just eating shredded cheese.
yes, and then blackmail me if I don't order more food. Like that's what I worry about.
Yeah, that's scary. Some of this stuff, it fascinates me what the future will hold. Obviously, I'm in a very forward-thinking company, and it's great. But like, I'm also super scared of what's to come. Like, I'm not one of those people who are like, unplug your Alexas and like everyone's listening to you. Because to be honest, my Alexa is hearing nothing important or
Mm.
interesting. But other things do kind of freak me out about the future.
Yeah. That's actually something I tell people all the time. Technology is not a bad thing. And I mean, people have always been scared of what technology is going to do, but it usually always works out because we learn best practices with our technology.
Yeah.
Like people were afraid of being electrocuted by wires when they were being hung up across the U.S. like telephone lines. They were afraid
Yeah.
that we were going to electrocute everybody. But in reality, like you forget they're even there today.
Yeah.
And same thing with plenty of other technologies, and like Alexa, for example, or Google Home, which I have as well. It's if you're going to have a private conversation somewhere, are you going to have it in the kitchen with your Alexa is, or are you going to just step outside for that? Like, there's like little things you can do because I mean, having one in your house definitely gives you a lot of, it gives you the ability to make your life more efficient, to get things
Yeah.
done, to get access to information very quickly, to consume information in audio form, like this podcast.
Totally.
But like if you're worried about someone knowing what kind of cheese you want to buy today at the store, then maybe you step out of the kitchen. Like I like the privacy solution is like 10 steps away, or you could.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then like with your phone and like being worried the NSA is watching you, just turn your phone upside down or just leave your phone somewhere else. Like you don't have to hold onto your phone all the time. So I think there's
Yeah.
like simple solutions for like the things that we fear with technology a little bit. So I try and tell people all the time, like just take some like precautions. You don't need to worry about it all the time. Like throw a pillow over your Alexa or blanket or something, like if you're super paranoid, but like you don't need to not have it. You should definitely have it at
Yeah.
some point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so it can be whatever, the future can be scary, but like when has it not been? I mean, that could be a silly comment, but even, I mean, the internet, I'm sure when the internet was first like really becoming more whoa, I just said like 8 different versions of what I actually wanted to say, but more widespread was the word I was looking for. I'm sure there was hesitation with that, and like same thing with flying. People wouldn't fly, and I mean, obviously there's dangers coming with flying, but think about how many flights take off in a day. I'm having, when I'm in London for work, I'm going to be there for end of September, all of October, and I'm having 6 of my friends come visit me. It's at one point, and they are all taking different flights at around the same time. I'm like, how many flights are there from New York to London? And like, they're all going to land around the same time. So anyways, people were always scared of the future and technology and all of this stuff. But one of the main things, I'm like that person in a bar where someone says blockchain or Bitcoin or cryptos or something, and I turn to them, I'm like, oh, I actually work at a blockchain company. I'm Catherine. And then I start talking their ear off, and they're like, why did I ever even say this? But I always say to my friends, it's like the way credit cards change the way you pay for things. It's only gonna, I mean, it's going to massively improve our lives in ways and create so many efficiencies, like you were saying with the cheese.
And the plane, you know what? Planes are interesting. I've had a lot of interesting experiences with blockchain and planes lately.
Talking about planes, it's interesting, and they're actually not my next guest coming out on the podcast, but the one after that. We had these guys in our office who are young. They're still in college. They entered this. We have an entrepreneur in residence program here, and they entered this program with this idea about like logging plane parts on a blockchain. And because these two students, their company, they've now built this company called Aerotracks, and it's pretty interesting. They're at Villanova, and they spent the whole summer kind of building up this use case and why it's important and all that stuff. So it's kind of funny. It all is connected.
Yeah, what they really need to do, though, is they need to consolidate all their seating to a blockchain, because right now you can buy seats like on multiple different sites, and they're constantly like overselling their flights. Like when I was flying to Hawaii, I had that same issue because I couldn't get my seat until I got to my gate. And then they never got to the gate and let you get your seat until like 20 minutes before the flight. So there's like this long line of people waiting to get an assigned seat. And if you were in the very back of the line, well, you were screwed, because there were like three people like overbooked. And I'm like, this would never happen if it was like on a blockchain. If it was on a blockchain, you'd be able to accurately know that all the seats have been booked on any of these sites. Everything would be able to come to consensus. It's a really good example of a real world issue that could be solved with blockchain. It could make things a lot cheaper. It could make flights more efficient, and then things would be faster. You'd be able to get on more flights. It'd be much more organized. It annoys me.
Well, they wouldn't lose money. They wouldn't lose money too on like overbooking flights and then being like, oh, well, if you stay an extra night, then we'll give you this many points or whatever. Like,
and then they won't be in the they won't be in the news dragging people off flights and having all these bad PR events. And
it's only good. It's only good.
Since we're already kind of talking about all the things we like between cheese and blockchain, what do you find most interesting about crypto in the blockchain space?
What I actually find most interesting about crypto, this is not going to be a great answer, but it's just from my perspective, from being in marketing, I'm in the Twitter world. I'm constantly reading things about R3, about Ethereum, about Bitcoin, about XRP, about everything. And I just find the trolls to be so interesting. I know that's an unconventional answer, and you were waiting for me to say like something about like, oh, the prices and Bitcoin's over 10,000 or whatever. But I do think it's so funny, this like community of crypto trolls. This is a very marketing answer of me, by the way.
No, it's not a bad answer. I mean, if you kind of look at it, like there's a community of trolls online, really created by the internet. And I remember seeing a lot of this stuff really begin to pop up on the Xbox 360 when I was younger, because that's when like online gaming, like on a console, really took off. And you'd be playing like either Battlefield or Call of Duty or Halo or whatever, and you're on. I don't know if you ever really played video games or anything, but
I didn't. But I had 3 brothers,
so they're probably well aware. Like, grow up in middle school and high school, and you get these people that come on to these chat rooms, and they're just trolling the whole thing. Like they're doing voices. They're trying to piss you off. Like it's just awful. Like they're not there to like compete. They're not there to like play. They're there to just like screw around. Those were some early internet trolls for sure, especially in gaming. And for whatever reason, that has really crept over to blockchain and a lot of these platforms. I don't know. They just thrive in that environment. It's interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, there's obviously so many more interesting things than that, but it's pretty consistent with my job and what I have to be doing, because I'm constantly like looking for news in the blockchain and crypto space. And they're so interconnected, obviously, because blockchain wouldn't exist without these cryptos. But yeah, I just find it so funny just constantly seeing this. The other day I was in a meeting and I got like a little distracted because of a literal fight on Twitter that like 20 people were chiming in on. I was like, this is better than The Bachelor. This is so interesting to me. So a pretty non-traditional answer, but
Yeah, I try not to engage in too many long form conversations on Twitter because they can go on forever and they get wild. So
wild.
yeah, and they're relentless. Like everyone wants to one up each other on Twitter, and it doesn't stop. Like it'll suck
No,
it'll suck
totally.
your
And
life
people
away.
don't back down.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, obviously the space is super interesting. The one thing is that me being in New York, there are a lot more like you can't have a bunch of different cryptos that you could probably obviously elsewhere in the world. So it's pretty limiting. So that's kind of interesting. And kind of on that note too, the way that regulators are getting involved in the space is, I'm getting into a more serious answer, but it's crazy because they really have to kind of catch up and how do you even deal with blockchain and cryptos from that perspective? I don't know. That's an interesting thing for me.
Yeah, very, very true. Have you ever bought any Bitcoin or any crypto? Have you like dabbled in it, or do you just kind of like watch
Yes.
it?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things where I don't bet at all. But I can understand why like sports betting is kind of a thing because it makes you so much more invested. And I don't know if I would be as invested if I didn't have just a little here, a little there. But I do have Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but not much. I just like kind of watching what happens. And obviously it was super interesting last year when everything just kept rising and rising and rising. Not as fun when it started to fall, but
No, it's not his fault, but the trolls definitely come out for sure. So it's still entertaining.
that is so true. The whole thing's entertaining. But yeah, just a little bit, nothing too crazy.
Do you have a preferred source to get your news from?
Preferred source? That's a good question.
Or do you kind of just like Google Bitcoin and see what pops up?
I feel like this is a little bit of a lame response, but honestly, Twitter, because you can get so much. I'm really being consistent with my role here at R3, but you can get so much information from so many different sources. So instead of just having like one website that I go to, whether it's CoinDesk or this or that, like it's all there. And so I can kind of dabble and I follow just the news sources I want and kind of pick and
Yeah,
choose.
it makes sense.
Depending on
Twitter's a great place to get news. Like for a lot of time, I'd Google Bitcoin or I'd Google Ethereum and just kind of see what pops up for like general stuff. But you really can't trust the news nowadays. It's just so like messed up on so many levels. So I just don't watch the news. I don't watch TV very often. I don't go to Google and look at articles as often unless I'm looking for something specific. But when you go to the nice thing about Twitter is you can go directly to whoever it is and see what's up. I can go to Vitalik Buterin's Twitter and see what he's talking about, like what he's typing on his phone. Like that's how the best way to get information is directly as much as possible. So
yeah, I agree. And also with some reporters, and I would say I would hope that it's a little bit, the space is a little bit more pure than like politics these days and like the news reported on politics. But if you do have, like, let's say someone writes an article that maybe is polarizing or you don't agree with or whatever, but they say that they're not biased. And then you go to their profile and let's say it's a bad news piece on Ethereum or something, and it's supposed to be a non-biased piece, and then you go to their Twitter profile and they're personally attacking Ethereum at any chance they get, you're probably gonna reassess how you take that news piece. So I think it's just you can find a way to curate your feed so you get what is most pure, at least. I
Yeah,
think.
the media problems are coming to crypto as well as things get more and more competitive. Start
Oh,
You're starting to see
totally.
that with a lot of the blockchain projects like Ethereum, like EOS, like Cardano, like Tron, and some of these guys are more forward than others, and a lot of them are very polar opposites to each other, and you'll see them bash one blockchain over another, and the news
Yeah.
even for crypto, like whether you're on Cointelegraph or CoinDesk or whatever, it's sometimes a little skewed and hard to determine what's true or not, because that
Yeah.
competition is beginning to creep up. So again, I always tell people just go directly to the project and make your own decision. Like one project's always going to say
Yeah.
the other project sucks because they're all competing. E- Every, the
Yeah.
Cardano project wants everyone on their blockchain. Tron project wants everyone on their blockchain, and vice versa. And everyone says Ethereum can't scale, and Ethereum says it can't scale. But it in the future it will.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to go
I mean,
direct.
I think 100%. And I think uh, we've dealt with that a little bit at R3 too, with kind of false claims where I'm obviously I'm controlling a lot of our accounts, and it takes a lot of effort for me not to respond
Yeah.
to things. I never do, and I never will from the R3 account. But it's hard when you're seeing things that are just not like factually not true, and normally that's not the case, I will say. But it's tough kind of seeing some news where you're like, oh, like I wish that they kind of reached out for a comment or something, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't really care about your comment or whatever. But this space is definitely creeping in.
What accounts does R3 have? I know you guys got a Instagram and a Twitter.
Yeah, I'm ramping up the Instagram a little bit because I kind of was in a weird place where I didn't know exactly what I wanted the Instagram to be
Mhm.
like, because obviously there's the Instagrammers. I'm not going to be posting everything I would post on LinkedIn or Twitter. It has to be like picture kind of
Mhm.
based. So I'm starting to ramp that up a little bit. With a lot of life in the fast chain stuff, and also with just pictures of kind of company culture and things we do around the office. So we have Instagram, which is the same as the Twitter handle, which is inside_R3. We have Twitter, which I post on the most. We have LinkedIn. We have a Facebook. I pretty much just don't want to close off the Facebook audience, but we don't get much traction on Facebook.
Mhm.
So I pretty much just take what I post on LinkedIn and put it on Facebook. And the people who are on Facebook that do engage with our stuff is awesome. It's just a smaller group of
Right.
people. And then we also, I'm talking on like main R3 accounts. We also have a Corda based Twitter, which is more like community, developer focused. I have access to it, but I'm not the main poster on
Mhm.
it. Because I don't think I don't think it makes sense to have me like tweeting dev focused things, but it's more like about the community and open source projects and all that. So that is the social we have. I'm trying to think if we have Medium. So for blog posts, we have a Corda Medium. So again, more technical blogs, and then an R3 Medium. And then we additionally have Vimeo and YouTube for
Very
videos.
cool.
And those are under the R3 account.
Sounds very well rounded.
We try to make it well rounded. I hope it looks that
The,
way.
the funny thing is, like, I almost never get engagement on Facebook anymore. I feel like no one uses it.
Yeah.
Like everyone has a Facebook, but no one uses it. No one really posts on it, or no one engages
Yeah.
with it. Everyone's on Instagram or they're on Twitter. Like I don't see anyone anywhere else. It's interesting.
No, I totally agree with you. And I mean, to be honest, the reason I used to use Facebook essentially to hold on to my photos so that I would have them in like on something. And then I just stopped using it altogether, other than like I'll check it sometimes if I think I'm like missing a friend's birthday, or if there's like an event nearby. I have used it because people still, I found in New York specifically, I guess, and maybe it's just my friends, but people will just send a Facebook invite for events. But other than that, I'm personally rarely on it, but I do post to it for R3 account stuff.
Twitter's like the place to be. It's like where all the cool kids are now because everyone wants to hear what you have to say.
I know. And it's such a good way to get your own voice kind of out there. From an R3 perspective, we're obviously posting about R3, the community, Corda enterprise, and Corda open source at some points. But for my personal Twitter, I have literally like no followers, but it's kind of a fun way to engage with people in the community who want to follow you.
Bread and Rutter, correct?
Yes, it's at Bread and Rutter. I actually, at one point when I was creating it, I really wanted to somehow incorporate butter in some way. And then I made it Rutterfly, like as a joke. And then it seemed a little too like fairy kind of frou-frou. And I was like, well, I love bread.
Hey, there's a lot you could do with your last name. Like, what are you waiting for?
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Oh, I like that. Except that would be kind of hard to like if I spelled it out, I feel like people would be like, what? You'd have to say it out loud.
Too long for like a username. It'd be good for a bio though. Like, have you followed me yet? What are you waiting for? Or like, here's my life.
Oh, I love I love that. My mom's old email used to be Rutter Chaos.
Rutter Chaos. That's awesome.
It's like, that's pretty consistent.
This podcast has been awesome so far. It's going to be really good once edited. But before we kind of wrap up and everything, what do you have coming up on the horizon? I know that you're taking off somewhere for September, correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to London. I'm going to be working out of our London office from September 19th to October 29th-ish. And I'm there for that long because we are going to Sibos. The conference is hosted in London this year. I think next year it's going to be in Boston, so it'll be closer. But we have a big booth there, and that is September, I think it starts September 23rd to the 27th. And then our big flagship conference is CordaCon, and that is in October. That's October 23rd and the 24th. So since there's not so much time in between them and there's so much preparation to do for CordaCon, we kind of figured that a few of my coworkers and I would just stay over in London rather than come back for less than a week and then have to fly back over there. So that's a big one, especially from a multimedia standpoint. From my perspective, there's going to be so many people at both conferences, especially obviously CordaCon. It's the people in our community who are interested in the R3 ecosystem and the Corda platform. So there's so many smart people that I hope to be able to try and interview for the podcast, maybe get some video. So I'm creating a multimedia plan for that right now, and that's been a big lift, but it's going to be so great and exhausting, but it'll be good. That's my main thing I'm working on in the future.
Very cool. Sounds like it'll be a blast for sure.
Yeah, come on over.
Well, I probably won't make it for September, but probably could do something in November if you want to do a follow-up episode for sure.
Hey, yeah, if you're in New York, I will be in New York for November.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Catherine, thank you for coming on and taking the time out of your wide open day. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. This is so fun. I'm never the guest, so I definitely rambled, but that was very fun.
Yeah, it's fun to mix it up every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. And then next time we can do just like a collab episode. Maybe we interview people together. I don't know.
Whoa. That sounds cool. Whoa. That's a big step.
Big step.
No, that'd be kind of cool too. Yeah, definitely.
Yay. Everyone listen to Life in the Fast Chain.
Definitely. Go listen to Life in the Fast Chain. Catherine's awesome. She has the same amount of energy, I promise, on that podcast. And she has great guests. I listened to it in the car. It's fantastic. Again, thank you for coming on. It was awesome having you, and I'll follow up with an email for sure.
Yay, you're the best.
All right, Catherine, I'll see you later.
Thank you.